There we go. Folks, as you're coming back, I apologize. I have no idea what happened. I didn't touch anything. If it happens again, we'll just have to reboot. I'm not aware, and Nick, you can text. I don't believe there's a time limit on this, but and I didn't pay attention to how long it was, but there could be maybe it seems weird, but maybe there's a 15-minute time limit. If it happens again, I apologize. We'll just reboot and start back up again. Anyway, I'll wait. Okay. All right. My club, then you see that, the physical activity, obesity reduction, at-risk youth diversion. We had founding members who were educators, were involved in public health and things like that. This particular application from the Rotary Club, what will the grant funds be used for? That's the opportunity for you to kind of paint a picture of why what you're doing is impactful. If you merely say we're going to put on a clinic for kids, that's great. Big soccer supporter, but how does that help those kids beyond just 3 or 4 hours in the afternoon? And so even I would encourage you, if you're writing a grant application, even for something as simple as we're going to do a summer camp for younger kids, for low-income students, for children, tie in what can you do to possibly expose them to alumni from your club who have gone on and played college, and things just to help so that the readers or the grantors can determine that, oh, you are trying to do more than just keep kids busy for an hour and a half or 2 hours on a Friday afternoon or on a weekday. Also, don't hesitate to, the number of kids you're going to serve, don't just make up a number, but you can say, look, we've got this many to pull from, and we are going to be comfortable. We're confident we can serve this. The last page, you just see, I just tried to give them a little description, a little view of what actually we're buying for this. And if you see there, everything that I put down were things that were reusable. I was trying to get entirely material so that we weren't having to cannibalize stuff off of our competitive teams to do that. Excuse me. That's Nick. 1 second. Go back. Sorry. Anyway, so that is a sample grant application. Not successful, but I have had successful ones that were exactly the same thing. We'll go into our homework in a minute. My next question here was, does the funder really want to make a soccer grant? I alluded to that earlier as well. It's not. We have to sell it. I'll be perfectly honest. This is not a sport that is. We all grew up playing with our grandpas and grandmas. Some of us did, but most of us didn't. And so you can't pull on that nostalgia, those strings of nostalgia that some young people will have, or some of these funders will. They'll remember doing it. That being said, we can certainly say, look, this is in California in particular. We have our Latino community, we have our immigrant community. I think there's 10 million immigrants in this state. I think we're a quarter of all in the country. And we are, this is a sport that is the most popular sport worldwide. We're trying to reach out and build bridges across our communities. I think that's a line, that you can use, an idea you can use. But again, it comes down to your funder. If you're writing to the Kaiser Health Foundation, we don't have Kaiser up here. If we did, I'd write to them. It's a matter of how are we getting kids active? And so there needs to be more than just soccer. And that would require, if I was doing it locally, I would reach out to the Open Door Health Community Health Clinic, our local nonprofit health fund, health provider. We have Sisters of St. Joseph's Care up here as well, and I might talk to them and try to find out, or the county public health department, or Parks and Rec from your town, but how can we offer more than just soccer? And that might be, are the kids going to learn about health and nutrition? Are they going to learn about good eating habits? And that's the same thing, health and nutrition. Are they going to learn about exercise or other things that might fit into your community? If you have a Boys and Girls Club in your community that is looking for more kids to participate in that, maybe your partnership on the application is you partner with them and you say, we're going to hold it at this location, so the students, or the players, the children, aren't just exposed to soccer, but they'll be exposed to all the wonderful things the Boys and Girls Club have to offer. And or if they don't have, if they don't have a facility, then they do come to your facility, but maybe their people are there to help and support the kids and teach them about some of the things that they can do. It's trying to just provide as broad and pro-social opportunity for the kids as possible, because otherwise a lot of people just say, well, we don't fund sports grants, and you have to go a little bit beyond that. Next question here: what data do grant funders ask for, and where to find it? In the document we have here, I give you two real easy examples. Normally, they're going to want to know about your community, and the U.S. Census. Towards the end, you'll see the factfinder.census.gov. This is the community survey. You can go into your community and you can peel out poverty rates, income. There's poverty rates for kids under the age of 18, and families and things, and that's useful. Your club yourself, you'll have some demographic information about your players, and if you've got a lot of kids on scholarship, you can say, look, half of our kids, or a third of our kids, are scholarship players. That's going to resonate with them. The California Department of Education website, the DataQuest website, you can go to. It's not the best in the world to look for, but there are places in there you can find the free and reduced price meals, which in the school business is kind of our stand-in for poverty. What percent of kids get free and reduced price meals? And if you have a question on that, Nick, if you would post my email, feel free just to shoot me an email and say, hey, here's my school. Can you please, or here's our local school district. Can you send me that? And I can send it back to you or show you. It's a 2-minute process to walk through. I'd be happy to do it. Please note, I've got 4 or 5 different applications due on Monday afternoon. So I won't get back to you until next week. So maybe hold that until close to the next session. The same with the U.S. Census thing as well. I'm happy to navigate anybody through that. And then the next question, I guess, here is, when is applying for a grant really a waste of time? This isn't soccer specific, but I have a rule of thumb when I'm writing a grant, or before I even decide to apply it for it, I look at how many they're going to fund. It might be the perfect grant, but if they're only funding 4 of them and it's a national grant, unless you're coming in as LA Unified School District in my business, or St. Louis, or someplace with high poverty rates, big demographics, and large numbers of kids and teachers, it's hard to do. Comparable to that discussion earlier on the U.S. Soccer Foundation grants. It's interesting, but it's not necessarily just the odds of getting funded aren't there. We do have one possible advantage, and and that is it's Nick and it's the people at NorCal Premier. They can potentially not and I hope Nick's not having a heart attack right now, but not in terms of helping us write the grants, but helping us connect with or have a broader reach in that. And so, Nick or the NorCal folks could help support the fact, yes, this is a club that is striving to really be inclusive, to bring low-income kids in, to bring girls in, underrepresented groups. We have this pay-for-play conundrum in U.S. youth soccer, and this is something that the NorCal Premier, as the premier youth soccer and organization here in Northern California, could be able to potentially help you with. And it may just be a letter, and you may have to write it for Nick, but they can potentially help us support that. Excuse me for that. I'm going to go back to my agenda here, make sure we're covering everything. As a school teacher, I should have been smart enough to over-prepare, but that's okay. Questions or comments from the audience I would ask for them. Then we'll talk about some homework for you guys. And if we get done early, that's great. I'm going to put my glasses on so I can see. All right. Okay. Then no comments this one. Let's talk about kind of our homework for the next application, for the next one. In a perfect world, we would have done this when the Target soccer grants, and that's a good grant because there are so many of them. They uh, award them all over the country. Um, that would have been ideal. I tried to get a hold of them, but it's super hard through their corporate. Oh, actually, I do have one more resource. I'll make sure we show that before we go. But your homework will be this. I'm going to give you two pieces of homework, if I may, please. The first, I use these new comments. I'll get this in a second. The first thing is at the bottom or somewhere in that document that Nick shared with us is the foundation directory online. I'm not sure if I can read it. Oh, good. And I do see questions from Nick. But the question from if you would, for your homework, please look at the foundation directory online. That was my local people at the Humboldt Area Foundation. They searched for us for grants in California, grantors in California. Take a look and see if any of these are in your area. It might be worth sending them an email and saying do they follow up. There was a question, and that was, do many health providers provide grants? And the answer is yes. In the soccer and the youth sports world, it varies, and you have to reach out to somebody in those organizations, hopefully somebody you might know who can help direct you to those foundations. But they do, and it varies. But for instance, Sutter Healthcare, which is all over parts of the state, I know that they'll make grants at different times. And so if you do me for your homework, if you'll look into that, if that's of interest to you, please do. And if you strike out on that, shoot me an email next week, and I can I'll make a few phone calls or try to search their website and find out whether or not they're funding at this particular time is unknown. And again, it may have to be combined with some kind of health activity. One of the things we were funded for by our local health care providers were some activities up at some low-income schools in the next county where we were doing a health fair, and there was also a soccer component to it, and an outreach like that. And so it's a way to get out there and let people know that you're available. But it certainly wasn't big money, but it's a possibility, and depending on the funder, again, the health department, they might be willing to do it. All right, other homework. So your homework for the week is please look at the foundation directory online document and see if there's one or two that is in your area. I had my friends at the Humboldt Area Foundation search for Northern California. If they might regret me saying this, but this search was pretty limited to the northern part. There's not much in the Central Valley. If you are looking for a funder in your part of the world, if you can shoot Nick or me an email, I will forward it over to the Humboldt Area Foundation folks, and I think they can do a search for you. This Foundation Directory Online is a great program. It's also subscription-based, and it's it's probably not worth investing in at this time unless you are really serious. You're going to do this full time. Other questions? Let's see. Many health providers provide grants, and there we go. Please provide more examples of big and small grants. Yeah. Okay. So I see Vincent's question there. Sorry, I'm thinking. Vincent, some of the small grants again are going to be so Rotary clubs, Elks, and local community organizations are your best bet for, at least from my experience, for small grants. I don't know what you have in your particular community, but you might have a Sons of Italy, you might have some different fraternal order of moose or something. But look into those. American Legion. American Legion has backed baseball for years, and so that's a possibility. Larger grants, like I said, and soccer specific, are really few and far between, and that's not unique to soccer. The I didn't. The NFL has some. I know it's the wrong football, but the NFL does have some field development grants. Uh, those are similar to the U.S. Soccer Foundation grants. You could, though, potentially, you know, you could talk about combining with your local youth football league and going in together on a grant application. Reason being is, at least here in my part of the state, um, the autumn is fine; it's dry. Our problem for fields is winter and spring. But if we could somehow share field space with another sport, if that allowed us to increase the odds of getting funded in field development, that would be a possibility. Coach training is, well, those aren't typically big grants, and NorCal Premier will typically have things like that. Sorry, that's all I got. I will look around before the next session and see if I can find anything else, but off the top of my head, that's all I got. Diane asked, characteristics of reporting or feedback. If it's a local grant, you are really looking at, thanks, that's a good question. If it's a local grant, it's usually just a thank you letter. It's always neat if you can have a couple of the kids go. We do that with local school grants and try to get a couple of kids to go to the Rotary Club or whatever and say, well, here's what we did, and maybe show some pictures. But when they, one of the local Humboldt sponsors, they're called, gave us a couple $1,000 for equipment and to run a winter program a few years ago. We sent them a thank you card signed by some of the kids and just a one-page little note saying, thanks, we had this many attend, we did this many hours, and that was really it. We didn't even give them a particular demographic breakdown besides X number of boys and Y number of girls. Other grants, if you're getting money for construction, there can be more significant requirements, but it's very dependent on that. I didn't mention this. I'm going to birdwalk for 1 second. If you have a relationship with your local school district, it's for us up here. The only turf field for 200 miles from where I live is at Humboldt State University, and they charge, if you can get the field, $150 an hour plus custodial time. So it doesn't have lights, so it's a pretty limited thing. However, if there was something you could partner with your local school district on, they would be much more accommodating, and that might be the route you go to help them sponsor and help them find money. But reporting on that would be, on a construction grant, would be significant, and you would have to almost find a supporter in the community who is who's experienced with working with state and federal construction grants. That would be it. Depending on the size, the other grants, it varies from a 2 or 3 page report to maybe 15, 20 pages, but it really just depends on the people, on the organization. I can't be more specific than that, but I could send you examples of annual reports, but you don't want to see those. Usual deadline for, David asked, deadline for apply and approval times. Yeah, they run throughout the year. There's not really a rhyme nor reason to them. And so time to submit runs anywhere from usually 45 days to 90 days. Some maybe even 4 months, but that's about it. Melissa asks, would going for multiple small grants and being lucky enough to receive them turn to a negative with larger grants? For example, you get, I don't think so. I have found in writing, and this is again in the education space, but I found in writing grants that having success with small grants and showing that we can actually do this actually makes you a better candidate for further funding down the line. So I think you're okay on that. I would never let the fear of not getting a future grant, a future large grant, keep me from writing for small grants, because they're usually different funders. So I think you'd be okay there. I think that's everything, guys. Thank you. And yeah, thanks. Oh, good. Yeah, and I see that Nick did post my email. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. couple little quick things. And so homework again. So look at the Foundation Direct. Please try to find somebody in your region. And then if you want for the next time, and again, the only template we have is that Humboldt Rotary grant, take a look at those prompts and maybe try to put together just a little brief description of your club. Once you wrote this, it's funny, I wrote a grant to the San Jose earthquakes 6 years ago to help fund some stuff in the wintertime, a little winter in-school event. And I've literally been using that language updated for the last 6 years. There's still pieces of it in the grant you'll see there. So once you've done the work on a little bit about your club, you're going to recycle it. Once you've done the work about the demographics of your community, you will recycle it and all those things. Don't hesitate, and I'll leave it at this unless there's any more questions, but don't hesitate to shoot me an email. Again, please wait until next Tuesday if you want a quick response. But on Jack, can you help me find the demographic information for my school district or for my local community? And if you can't find it yourself on the census or the California Department of Ed, and I'll happily shoot that back your way. Be my pleasure. And checking the time. Any more comments? And then we'll call it a night. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. And don't hesitate to email if you have questions. Thank you very much. And thank you, Nick, for setting this up.